Our site will feature a twist on a popular and very basic layout structure. We'll have a header, followed by the main navigation, and this will be followed by the main content region, a sidebar, and then finally a footer. Every page in our site will follow this layout, meaning that we will be able to build one set of styles to control our layout and then use those styles on every single page. That allows us to write very efficient code and build a consistent structure. You may remember that div tags will give our page structure and form these content regions. ID values will be assigned to the div tags to pass along meaning and aid in the styling process. As a general rule, I will create and style these div tags before any other content appears on my page. That way, I can make sure the layout is working and that the structure is sound before committing content to the page itself. In this movie, we'll begin to create our layout from scratch. To do this, we'll use Dreamweaver's tools to quickly add div tags to our page, adding IDs and styles as we go. So I have the index.html file open from the 10.07 folder. And currently, we just have a blank page. There is nothing in here whatsoever other than the body tag itself. Now, we do have one style that is currently giving a background color to the body tag, and that's just going to help us make sure that we have proper definition for all the elements on the page as we begin to add them. Okay, now I'm going to show you a tool here that I absolutely love. Now, to be honest with you, some of you guys are going to be very comfortable hand coding, and you could go into code view and you could do what we're about to do here in a much quicker fashion. However, the tool I'm going to show you guys is the Insert Div Tag tool. It's right up here in the Insert panel. And the thing that I really like about this is that even though we're in design view, we're going to be able to create div tags that are going to go into our content. We're going to be able to precisely control where those div tags are going to be located. And we're going to be able to assign an ID or class and write the style for that ID or class as we insert it on the page. So that allows you to tackle a lot of tasks at one time, which is why I like this tool so much. So what I'm going to do is just go up, and with my cursor blinking anywhere on the page, it doesn't matter, I'm going to click to insert a div tag. Now at this point, saying add insertion point doesn't really matter. I mean, there's nothing on the page. So it's going to go inside the body tag, which is perfect. Now notice that we have a couple of dialog boxes here. The first one allows us to assign a class value, and the second allows us to assign an ID attribute. So we could assign a class or an ID attribute with this dialog box. Now, if we currently had an attached style sheet that had pre-existing classes or pre-existing IDs, we could actually grab them from this pull-down menu. Now, we don't have any styles written whatsoever, so it's empty. But that's what is so neat about this new CSS rule option. That allows you to create and write your CSS as you're assigning the ID and inserting the div tag on the page. So it allows you to do that all at one time. So if I click inside the ID field here and I type in the word wrapper, when I choose new CSS rule, notice that it already knows that, oh, you need an ID selector and you're going to want to name it #wrapper. So you're going ahead and taking care of a lot of steps all at once. Now I'm going to go ahead and define this rule in this document only. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And instead of writing all of our layout CSS right now, we're just concerned with building the structure. So we're only going to put a couple of properties in here to allow us to identify these regions, and then we're going to come back in a later exercise and actually write the CSS for them. So the first thing I want to do here is go to my background property, and I'm going to give this a background of #FFF. That's white. And then I'm going to go to the box category, and I'm going to go ahead and give this a width of 930 pixels. And that's what we need for our wrapper div tag. Our page content is going to be constrained within 930 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and OK again. Now, what happens is, all at once, the CSS style wrapper is created over here in our CSS styles panel, and our div tag is placed on the page. You can see that Dreamweaver gives you some placeholder content for that particular div tag. Content for ID wrapper goes here. Well, that's very useful if you're building out your entire structure and you want to know where the header is, where the sidebar is, where the main content region is. But for the wrapper, all it really does is wrap all of our other div tags, so we don't need that. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that text and just delete it to sort of get it out of the way. Be very careful. Make sure you don't have the entire div tag selected. So just highlight that text. You want the div tag to remain. Okay, now we're going to go through and add the remainder of our divs and go ahead and build styles for them at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and insert another div tag on the page, and this time where we insert it really does matter. We want to make sure that this is inside the wrapper div tag. So what we're going to do is grab this pull down menu, and instead of saying before tag or after tag, we're going to say after the start of tag. And we're going to say after the start of wrapper. So after the opening wrapper div tag, we're going to insert a div tag. And so it'll be between the opening and closing tags, meaning that this div tag will be inside of the wrapper tag. So you want to make sure it says after start of tag, div ID equals wrapper. And we're going to give this one an ID of header and choose new CSS rule. Once again, we're going to double check to make sure it is an ID selector. It should say pound header. And we want to define it in this document only. We're going to go ahead and click OK. We're going to give this one a background color as well. Now, the background colors we're putting in here, and this one's going to be pound FFC, they really don't mean anything. They're just placeholder colors to help us identify these regions of content. Later on, we'll replace them with graphics or other colors. I'm going to go down to the box category, and here we're going to give this one a width of 192 pixels, and we're going to give it a height of 237 pixels. The header is where our company logo is eventually going to go, and so that width and height is the exact width and height of the company logo. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Click OK again. And now, right after the start of our wrapper div tag, and you can kind of see it's definitely inside of it because there's our white background color of our wrapper, there's the header. Okay, well, let's keep going. And it doesn't really matter where you click because now we can use those insert div tag controls to make sure we're inserting them in the right place. So I'm going to choose insert div tag. This time I'm going to choose after tag, and the tag this one's going to come after is the header. So we're just going to do these in order from this point forward. It'll be after the previous tag that you just wrote. In this case, this ID is going to be main nav. Notice that is all one word, lowercase m, uppercase N. This means that if somebody's viewing our unstyled content, after the header, we want them to encounter the main navigation. We'll choose new CSS rule. Verify that everything looks good here. ID, main nav, this document only. Everything looks good. I'll click OK. And now what we're going to do is give this one a background color of pound 00F. I'm going to go to the box category, give it a width of 272 pixels, and give it a height of 200 pixels. Now the height is just there to show volume, but the 272 pixels is important. The main navigation and the sidebar are going to stack one on top of the other. They're both going to be 272 pixels wide, and they're going to look as if they're a single column. But because of the way that we want the content to be encountered, main navigation first, main content second, sidebar third, we're going to be a little sneaky in how we actually construct it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click OK here, OK again, and now there's the div tag main nav. Let's keep going. Insert another div tag. This time we're going to be after the main nav tag. Now make sure it says after tag and not after start. It's easy to confuse the two. And after tag means after the entire tag and not inside of the tag as after start of tag would be. So make sure you say after tag there. Div ID main nav. Now the next one is going to be main content. Here we're going to choose new CSS rule. Verify everything looks okay. ID, main content, this document only. And for this one, the background color is going to be pound CCF. Now, if you want to use different background colors, be my guest. I know these don't follow any great color scheme. They're really just there to show the elements, and they're designed to contrast with each other. So if you find them visually unappealing, please go ahead and put in your own. Now, in the box category, we're going to go ahead and give this a width of 608 pixels. Now, that is the width that we need for our main content region, but the height, and in this case is going to be 600 pixels, is again just to show volume. So we'll go ahead and click OK. Click OK again. There we get our main content. We're almost done. I'm going to do insert div tag again. This time we're going to do after tag, main content. So you can see we're just going down there in order. And the ID of this one is going to be sidebar. Now be sure to click new CSS rule. And we want this to be ID, pound sidebar, this document only. That's fine. Click OK. Background for this one, I'm going to use pound CC2. I'm going to go to the box category. And in the box category, I'm going to give that a width of 272 pixels and a height of 300 pixels. Now, remember, 272 was the exact same width as the main nav. So when those two sort of stack one on top of each other, they're going to look like a single column. I'll go ahead and click OK. Click OK again. And now we have one last div tag container that we need. I'm going to insert div tag. This one is going to be after the sidebar that we just placed in. So after tag, div ID equals sidebar. And we're going to give this one an ID of footer. And then click new CSS rule. So make sure it's an ID selector, pound footer, this document only. Go ahead and click OK. Now here for the background, I'm just going to put in pound 0EE, sort of a bright blue aqua color. And for the box category, go ahead and give it a width of 930 pixels. That is exactly the same width as our wrapper div tag, and give it a height of 200 pixels. Click OK, click OK again, and there is the footer. Now, that doesn't look very good at all, but it is exactly the structure that we need for our page layout. If we switch over to Code View, you can see how simple this structure is. We have a wrapper div tag, which is surrounding a header, followed by a main navigation, followed by main content, followed by a sidebar, followed by a footer. Those 5 elements are going to give us all we need for our main page layout. So even though we're a long way away from having our layout finished, we can at least see the basic structure of the site. Many of the things that we've created, like background colors and a lot of the heights, won't be part of our final layout. They do, however, give us the ability to preview our content areas as we're building the layout. Now, if you don't feel like adding these temporary items to your styles, let me show you something that Dreamweaver can do for you to preview those areas. I'm going to switch back to Design View, and if we didn't have any of these background colors, and we were just kind of wondering where do these elements fit in, you can go to your visual aids right here in the document toolbar, and you can choose CSS Layout Backgrounds. They're essentially going to color code all of the elements on the page with their own custom colors. Now, it's interesting because they're different every time. You never know what you're going to get. They use a random algorithm, so if you turn them off and turn them back on again, you get a different set of colors. Really, all they're designed to do is show you where those regions of content are and contrast them with the other regions on the page. So if you don't feel like putting in those sort of placeholder background colors that we've done, you could use that technique instead. Now, I also would like to point out that although we could have certainly hand-coded our page just as quickly, I really do like this technique because it allows me to precisely position my div tags and create styles as I build the structure. In our next movie, we're going to add floats and a positioning attribute that's going to create our main layout. Along the way, we'll discuss our layout choices and why attributes are used for specific elements.